All right, so the diet, as far as the macros and the calories from all of that stuff has been written. Snap of the finger, just like that. Now you can choose your diet foods to actually have. Notice you have this entire screen. And it lets you select meals. Now here's the thing. You can tell that in this week, which is the current week, there are no meals to configure in any of these because the diet starts tomorrow. It's not going to have you configure meals for something that doesn't come up. But as every day progresses and as we enter the new week, as soon as we finish Sunday, when we enter Monday, all of that is going to go open up for us and it will allow us to enter in all of our new meals. So let's just go to Saturday as an example, and we go in to our 8:30 meal. So notice all the meals are listed. We've got 4 meals and a shake, just like we thought. Notice our shake is during our workout time. Let's say we go in at 8:30, and we've got standard layout, proteins, carbs, veggies, which are optional. You don't have to eat them. You should if you want to be healthy for most meals, and fats. We notice also at the top that the meal gives us 50 grams of protein, 35 grams of carbs, and 40 grams of fat. That's what the computer says we need to eat to be more successful. Sweet. But we don't just eat macros. We can just go by, the fly and just pick them at the store or whatever, but we can do one better. Here's where the magic of the app really starts to open up. We select protein sources. By clicking on protein, we have all these different protein sources to select. Well, this is pretty sweet. Let's say we want to do wild salmon for this meal. Interesting breakfast, but we'll go with it. And notice wild salmon comes up 195 grams cooked weight. Well, that's pretty cool, right? What if we want raw? Boom, it converts right on the spot. No problem at all. And then we can pick our carbs. Let's say we want to eat, whole grain bread. Salmon sandwich, I suppose. I'm not the world's best chef. And it shows us how many slices of whole grain bread we need, and it shows us the grams. Notice bread is not cooked, so there's no cooked or raw. How does it know how much of this food to tell you? Well, it extracts all the food data from the macro data. So after we're finished configuring this meal, let's say we want to pick broccoli, and for fats, we want to pick some other kind of fat, avocados. After we configure this meal's macros are met through all of these foods. So all we have to do is eat the foods, 170 grams of salmon, 60 grams of whole grain bread, so on and so on. If we eat all that, we meet the meal's macros exactly, and we don't have to do any math. We literally just weigh that food on the scale, eat as much as we need, or pack it into meals for Tupperware, and we're good to go. That's it. Now, a couple of functions. We can go to next, right? And we can make the next meal, which is just the next meal after that. So notice, we'll go back here, 8:30 a.m. meal, the next meal is at 1:15 p.m. That one we have to do. Or if we have a bunch of meals that we do similarly, we can go back into our first meal and we can copy it to any of the other days in which it fits. Now, how come it says can copy to for some, but doesn't fit macros for others? Well, notice that first meal had 40 grams of fat in it. That's a lot of fat. And for some other meals, they just don't allow that much fat, so we can't directly copy the meal. But in all the meals we want to copy, let's say we want to eat the same thing for breakfast. On Sunday that we did for Saturday, we hit copy meal. And then check it out. We go and navigate back, and we notice the check mark next to Sunday. And voila, all the meals picked are for us already. So what you can do is customize every single meal exactly how you like it, and it'll automatically keep you on track for the macros. Or you can copy some meals if you want some shortcuts, or like many of us, you eat a lot of the same stuff through many days of the week. As soon as you're done setting up your diet, you can hit finish setup. Now here's the deal. Let's say some days of the week or some meals, let's say your 7:30 p.m. meal on Saturdays is you going out with your significant other and choosing meals off maybe just on the fly. No big deal. What you can do is leave that meal completely unedited and still finish diet setup. Your diet will still start, right? It'll give you a warning, says, hey, let the diet send you notifications to tell you when to eat your meals and when to weigh in. Really good idea because those are super helpful. So you want to hit allow on this next screen. boom, your diet is ready. Notice at the top it says your diet hasn't started yet. This is a preview of your first week, right? So if you scroll through, this is your first day of dieting, which in my case would be tomorrow. Notice the meal we picked is there. And remember we were talking about that 7:30 p.m. Saturday meal in which we go to the restaurant and we just kind of mix and match. Well, the restaurant might have the proteins in these categories, right, that we see, right? It could very well have them, but it might not. So if you're going out to eat, what you can potentially do is hit this button right here that says Show Macros. Hit the Show Macros button and check it out. These are the exact macros for that meal. 45 grams of protein, 85 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat. So if you're going out to eat and you want to mix and match using a menu, and you might use some different kinds of foods that aren't on the app, and we're always expanding our list of foods, but we can't put them all in there. If you've got some really unique stuff the macros for, at least eyeballing, you can always just do the Show Macros. But if you want to show foods, you go back and do show the foods. So you don't have to eat what the app says, but if you want to just stick to the macros, that's totally fine too. Up here, we have the daily macros. Notice as you eat each meal, the macros fill up. So you can see how many macros you have left over, or see if it's a lot or a little, right? You can see your macro daily totals, so on and so forth. So it's pretty straightforward. Here is a really interesting thing the app will do when you start getting into it. Let's take a look at this example. So let's say this meal has a 40 gram of fat allowance. So it's not a great example. This meal is actually a really good example. So notice the macros for this meal is only 10 grams of fat. So let's say we want to select a protein source. We click on protein. What in the heck happened to 90-10 ground beef? And how come 95-5 ground beef is still available? So if you click on 90-10 ground beef, it says there's too much fat in this meal. It doesn't say that exactly. It says it can't meet the macronutrient requirements, but basically, if you have enough protein to get 45 grams of protein from beef, the total amount of fat is in excess of our fat sources that we're allowed. It's in excess of that 10 grams of fat. But if you pick 95-5 ground beef, it's good to go, right? Moving on, we can choose carbs. Notice some of the carbs have a grayed out situation, right? So basically, the macros don't line up with this one. If you still want to eat it, you can proceed to eating it. But notice your protein got erased. So now, if you're intent on eating 4.5 slices of whole grain bread, you can't eat 95-5 ground beef anymore. You might have to switch to something super lean like chicken. So what I would recommend is going through and picking the foods you like, probably starting out, making a habit to start out with the protein and going down the list. Once you've picked all the foods, sometimes some foods won't be available. Why? Because they don't meet the macros. What if you really want to eat them? Well, here's the thing. You're on a diet, right? On a maintenance plan, on a muscle gain plan, you'll basically be able to eat almost anything you want or take a cheat meal here and there. But especially on the fat loss version of this app, you want to make sure you don't get too creative for your own good. Stick to the plan. If it says some foods are off limits, just eat the leaner foods. You'll eat what you need. You'll lose the weight. You'll get in shape, and it'll all be really super good results.